Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our weekly Tuesday tips for your nurse advocates consulting. I'm so glad you're joining me tonight. I know we're getting countdown to the holidays. We here at our house have our first holiday celebration this weekend. And if you're new here, my name is Pam Dunwald. I am one of your nurses from Your Nurse Advocate Consulting. And each week we provide helpful advice and tips to make caregiving just a little bit easier, we hope, for caring for your aging loved ones. So I know we talked about the holidays being right around the corner. For many of us included, it means family, lots of traditions, and making memories. We have grandchild number 19 on the way, due in February. So the family's continuing to grow. But it also can mean that there's some unique challenges. My husband and I, we are down to one parent. We lost my mother-in-law this past spring, and we just have one parent left. We have my mom, who's in January. She's going to be 85. And so having the holidays and having the activities, traditions, things that you do, it can be a little challenging when you're dealing with aging adults. And especially when it comes to including our seniors, whether it's our parents, our grandparents, or even our great-grandparents. And what can complicate that even more is if any of those loved ones are suffering from either Alzheimer's, dementia, or, some form of mobility challenge. So tonight we want to share some actionable tips on how you can how can you make your holiday event or gathering more inclusive, or so that we can include those aging adults and that we can honor the special needs of our aging loved ones. And these suggestions will not only help you plan better, but they're going to make a big impact on those loved ones. They're going to feel cherished, they're going to feel respected, and they're going to actually be able to feel part of the celebration and not feel that they're in the way. So grab a beverage, get a notebook or what, but just we're going to go ahead and jump in and start with the tips. So first section we want to talk about is accessibility. What does accessibility mean? That means addressing their mobility needs. If they can't go stairs, if they use a walker, if they're wheelchair bound, unsteady on their feet, what can we do to make our home or the place that we're gathering, a bit more accessible? So a gathering, no matter how festive, won't feel very welcoming if there's too many physical barriers that it's going to create stress or discomfort with our aging loved ones. So here's a few ideas to make your senior family members feel more secure, move around more safely and comfortably at your holiday event. So number one, entryways. If possible, host gatherings on the main floor to avoid difficult staircases. And, we, in our house, we have a finished basement, and so we do a lot of games. We have, people go upstairs, downstairs. So you just want to make sure that there's enough to do, that maybe that the main things aren't going on downstairs, like your meal is on the main floor, and the most important things. And if people want to go up and down, to do other things, that's fine. But we don't want them to feel excluded or isolated because everybody's downstairs and they can't get down the stairs. Then again, that's going to only make them feel like they're in the way, and because they feel like you're going to too much trouble. So look at the entryways. Add a temporary ramp if needed. That's possible. They have some like metal ramps that are portable. They can be removed. Also, clear walkways, clutter, ice, snow, if you're in an area where this time of year is going to have those extra hazards, or any tripping hazards, throw rugs, or any decorations that could cause a possible tripping hazard. Next thing would be seats with support. I don't know, maybe it's just because, I've been a nurse so long and in the senior space, but also, you don't have to be a nurse to recognize these things. I'm sure many of you that have been around aging adults, they'll say, oh, when they're picking a place to sit in, they want to sit in a nice, firm chair, because if the chair is too squishy, or a couch or a lounge chair, if they sink too much, it's really next to impossible for them to get out. So make sure that they have a comfortable chair suitable for them, that's right in the middle of all the action. So they don't have to feel like they're being pushed aside in the special chair. So make sure that they're sturdy, their armrests if possible. And speaking of wheelchair, make sure if your loved one is using a wheelchair that you can arrange the seating ahead of time. So like at the table, like us, we've got 2 tables upstairs that we'll use for dinner. And they're, we have a cabin, it's a big open area. So we have 2 tables that are kind of kitty corner from each other. So when you're thinking about that, pull away maybe one of the ends, pull away the chair and make a spot for the wheelchair. And just arrange the seating ahead of time to make sure that they feel included in the group and that they're not being tucked away in some corner with a TV tray because they can't fit at the table. All of these things might seem kind of minuscule, but it really does go a long way to make them feel included and make them feel good that you're actually thinking about them and taking their needs into consideration. It's just going to make them feel really good about the situation. Bathroom, make sure, double check that the restroom is equipped with, if you have grab bars or non-slip mats or that someone is accompanying them. Not all family members are going to feel comfortable taking, grandma or grandpa to the bathroom. But if there are, and maybe this is something that you can talk about with family members ahead of time, kind of go over some situations that might come up depending on the unique situation of your aging loved ones, and then kind of troubleshoot, how would you handle that, when it comes up, or who's going to handle that. So if these things are figured out ahead of time, again, it's going to make that aging loved one feel less a bother. So just take the time to kind of figure out your game plan for addressing some of these situations. So we talked about the downstairs basement. If you have another room on the floor, we kind of went through that about having like the main meal, or the main part of that in where they have easy access to. One of the things to consider is transportation, and this has come up a lot with my mom when we have family gatherings, is transportation. So my mom still drives, but now she's very limited to where we ask her, just to town, to where she's familiar to. We don't like her to go anywhere outside of her little area. So one of the challenges is that when we go to, like for Christmas, we're going to go to my brother's house. Our whole family is going to be there. There'll probably be about 30 of us or more. And, mom's going to go, but how does mom get there? Fortunately, my brother's home is relatively close to her. So her driving may work out okay, because then she can leave and, after a few hours. But that's the big thing is it's easy. It's a lot easier oftentimes to get them there because someone can pick them up, on their way to the family gathering. But then the challenge becomes when they want to go home earlier than everybody else. And so if there's not someone else that's ready to go home, it's kind of like, oh, we got to leave the party, take mom home, take grandma home, whatever. And so sometimes that can put a damper on things. So maybe try and get a little creative. Again, this is one of those things that you can deal with up front in the planning process, is maybe someone can bring them there, but maybe someone can, you can use a cab, an Uber, maybe if they need medical transportation, like your county provides that. Again, if it's on Christmas Day or, a holiday like that, you may want to make sure that they're still running it. And oftentimes on those times, you might have to make a reservation, but otherwise maybe a neighbor or a church family member, someone that maybe would have the availability around the time that they might go home, that wouldn't interfere in their holiday gatherings as well. So again, the more you can pre-plan all these things and think of how you're going to meet these challenges, the better off you'll be, and then everything will go smoothly. You'll feel good about them being there, participated at their level, and they were part of the family gathering, and yet you didn't have to disrupt everything, your enjoyment of the family gathering. So just some things to think about ahead of time, because I guarantee you they're probably not going to want to stay as long as everyone else. And maybe some of our aging adults will still surprise me sometimes, but that's just something to think about. So we talked about getting them home without the least amount of disruption. We talked about elderly transportation services, and we talked about, looking at other alternatives such as a neighbor of that. So, accessibility doesn't just mean that you're removing the barriers to make their stay more enjoyable. It's also sending them a message that they're welcome and they're thought about. So, any little things, little accommodations you could do will really, really go a long way. So let's look at the next section about being thoughtful about food. And Rhonda, just wanted to give a shout out to Rhonda. Thanks for hanging out with us a little bit today. So getting back to the subject of food. So food can be very overwhelming to aging adults because they don't eat as much as we do. And also they may have some difficulty in chewing. They may have dentures that we all know, the aging family members, that dentures, they've lost weight over the years and their dentures don't fit well anymore. And they have trouble eating. So, I mean, we've all seen that. So having some, not to say that you don't have to change your menu, have your traditional menu, but just maybe think about a couple of things extra, small things that are easy to chew, soft foods that can be part of the menu. So, and we can help them make those food choices. Also, our aging adults may have some dietary restrictions. So you want to check in advance if your loved ones have any dietary restrictions, or preferences, such as low salt, gluten-free, diabetic friendly, low sugar foods, low carbs, or heart healthy, which, low fat. This is a good thing. Make sure you know ahead of time. So again, if you know ahead of time, you can plan, and it's okay to ask. We have a daughter-in-law that needs to be gluten-free, and so it's not a big deal. We go through some accommodations for her. Our family meal for the holiday, all the kids and grandkids, they love venison. So the way my husband cooks it is a very delicious, but not healthy, but it's okay for our holiday meal. But we coat it in flour and spices, and then it's cooked in the fry pan. And so, but anyway, it's delicious. The kids, everybody loves it, but we do hers first, and we use a gluten-free flour. And then as we're cooking it, we keep it, before we eat, we cook so much, we put them in crock pots to keep it warm. So she'll have her own little crock pot, this weekend when we celebrate, and that will have her venison in it. And so she can eat mashed potatoes. I got treats for everybody. Fortunately, we have a bakery close by that has a wonderful gluten-free selection. So I feel good about having some treats here that she can have. And so it's not a big deal, but it's good to know ahead of time, because I plan for it and I don't have to go out of my way, because I'm just getting the things I need when I'm getting everything else. So we talked about not having to change the menu. The other thing we want to think about with aging adults is hydration. They oftentimes don't drink enough. So during the festivities, your celebrations, make sure that you've got some water, some non-alcoholic options, maybe like some teas or flavored water, things like that. Especially if your aging loved one has dementia, oftentimes they just forget. They literally forget to drink or eat. So sometimes, and these people with dementia, they do much better if the people around them are eating and drinking as well, because they have a tendency to do what everyone else is doing. Because if you ask them to do something outside where they're the only one, sometimes they get very self-conscious about that, and that can upset them when they have dementia. So just making sure that we have some good options available for beverages for our aging adults. Making sure that your menu respects everyone's needs. This will allow everyone to really enjoy the meal and not worry about it. And this can, another little way that can go a long way in keeping our aging adults happy. All right, let's move on to the next category. And that is creating a comfortable atmosphere. So control noise levels. This is one of the things too, that a lot of aging adults have hearing problems. And the hearing, as their hearing decreases with age, one of the things that they struggle with is loud noises and background noises. It can become very difficult for them to hear because they can't block out that background noise. So having an area that may be a little bit more quiet, like if your family's doing some boisterous games or things like that, maybe that's the time for that group maybe to go down to the basement or another room, and making sure that again, we don't want to isolate them, so we want to have them in an environment where they can visit and talk to people. And maybe this would be a good time for the grandkids, the kids, great grandkids, maybe just to rotate in small groups, 1, 2, 3 people at a time, and maybe have a conversation with them. I mean, they get to visit, and the kids, I mean, I've always been fascinated, with aging adults, and one of my favorite questions to ask them is, especially if they're aging adults that have been married for a while, I always like to ask them, where did you meet? How did your first date go? I mean, who was interested in who first? And they really, I mean, they just light up, talking about their spouse that way. Even if their spouse is gone, I mean, it's fun for them to reminisce. Sometimes if the loss has been real recent, that might be a little bit more sensitive. So use your best judgment on that. But where did you go to school? If they came from another country, what was it like there? What did you do there? How is it different than where we live now? Or where did you go to school? I mean, what was school like when you went to school? And these are things that, I mean, kids, I mean, this could be a really fascinating conversation, and the kids enjoy hearing those stories. So just having, people take turns just visiting them in small numbers, and will could be very, very enjoyable. And, lighting matters as well. Use soft, warm lighting, avoid flickering, want to make sure you're careful with any flickering Christmas lights or blinking candles or things that will flicker, especially if they have dementia. That could be very disturbing for them. So you want to be careful with that. And it also can irritate sensitive eyes and cause some confusion, again, especially with those loved ones with dementia. So keep it familiar, especially for our seniors that with memory loss. It may be difficult for them to remember the here and now or what they did yesterday or the day before, but oftentimes those long-term memories stick with them. And so, going through old photo albums, playing their favorite holiday music, or using decorations that they had from their house, this will always be cherished, and they're more likely to remember these type of things, and would again make that more meaningful for them. And again, this is a great time to have some meaningful conversations with an aging loved one. So we talked about the quiet area, we talked about dementia, and again, we talked about some one-on-one time. It's a great way, maybe interview. This would be a great time when family, isn't together, a lot. So maybe if the room is quiet, the room could be full of relatives, and maybe everybody takes a turn going around and just asking them a question, and then they're speaking. So it's quiet, but everybody's taking advantage of learning more about the aging adults in their family. So again, keep in mind that the senior's energy level may vary. And again, this is one of the reasons why they probably won't stay through the whole event, is because they just run out of gas, and that's perfectly okay. They've earned that. All right, so let's move on to the last section, and that is again, plan inclusive activities. So let's talk about, we've spent a little bit of time in conversations, interviewing, things that you can do that's all inclusive for our aging adults is reminisce. Again, we talked about the old photo albums or home videos, or maybe this is a great time to do a legacy video. And what I mean by that is again, if you're asking grandma and grandpa questions and everyone's taking turns, have someone video that. I mean, that would be a great legacy video. You could share that on a flash drive. Everybody could get one, and that would be a great way to remember and have a recording of a lot of those stories that they may not be around that much longer, for everyone to hear. Simple crafts or games, decorating cookies, making ornaments. Those are, all low pressure, activities that everyone loves to do. Classic games like bingo, things that are multi-generational, things that the aging adult might like and the kids might like as well. Music with movement, during the holiday, whatever holiday that you celebrate, there are songs that go along with that holiday that, can help lift their spirits. Music does wonders for the soul. I've seen many people with dementia just really come alive when they've been listening to familiar music, and they just light up. So some seniors might even enjoy a little dance or tapping along to the rhythm. I remember my grandma and grandpa were both from Sweden, and they had a big Swedish group of friends, and they would always have dinner parties. And I remember as a kid growing up, the dinner party started at dinner time. I mean, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and would go well into the evening. And as they got older, became aging, those dinner parties started at 11 in the morning, and they were done at 4 or 5. So again, it's all okay. Just try and think about what they can tolerate. Okay, so one-on-one moments, we talked about that, so we don't need to mention that again. That was listed again under this category. Sometimes all our aging adults really want is a meaningful connection, and what a great opportunity to do that. So the goal is to focus on the quality of time, not perfect activities. So what matters most of all is just the effort to include everybody in the joy. So so those are my tips for inclusive holiday gatherings to truly honor our senior and our aging loved ones. So a little extra planning can go a long way, as we mentioned before, making these special moments enjoyable for everyone, whether it's parents, grandparents, or great grandparents. And remember, the holidays are less about a picture perfect event, and I'm guilty of that too. I try and make everything perfect, and it's not about being perfect. It's about enjoying each other, showing love and care and respect for each other. And when you take the time to accommodate your aging loved one's needs, you're giving them the gift of belonging, which is priceless. You can't put a value on that. So if you have questions, tips, stories of your own, we'd love to hear them. Please share them in the comments on any other ideas that you found that's worked well with your families. I'm sure our community would love to learn more about those. And if you found tonight's session helpful, please share it with someone that might appreciate it too. The replay is always available on our YouTube channel, Your Nurse Advocate Consulting, so you can access the video. It'll be there within a couple of days. We'll have it up on the YouTube channel, and we'll also share the replay on our social media channel. So thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight. I hope your holiday season is full of warmth and connection, and I will see you back in 2 weeks for another Tuesday Tips with Your Nurse Advocates Consulting. And until then, take care, and make sure you take care of yourself as you continue to care for others. Take care, and we'll see you soon.